Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. As you must be knowing that the Phase-2 examination for our RBI Grade B 2024 was on 19th of October, and I had appeared for this examination for the third time, the mains paper. And in this video, I'll try to share what different I experienced this year compared to previous 2 years, and some of my insights, which I think will be useful for those who will be giving it next year, and a little bit of insights and idea about what would be a good score this year according to my analysis that I'll also be sharing in this video. Besides, I'll also show you a list of questions which were asked in the examination in finance and management. So I have collected around 27 out of 30 objective questions which were asked and all the descriptive questions. So I'll be sharing my inputs on all those questions and what was my approach in answering those questions, uh, and how did I perform in FM paper. So let's begin this video. So first and foremost, overall, if I talk about the overall impression of the paper, so usually FM paper is one such paper in this examination where people believe it is very high scoring based on what the marking scheme and question level have been in the previous 2 years, especially. And 75, 80 is something which usually people target. So most of us who went for Phase 2, I think most of us went with the same mindset of scoring 75, 80, something of that sort in FM paper to take an advantage. But surprisingly, it was not the usual FM paper what RBI has asked previously. What it was and what type of questions were there, I'll share these in coming slides. But well, I'll tell you when someone had seen those questions, those management paragraph. So I think most of us would have frozen for a few moments, I think, and it took some time to get the brain into the motion that you are answering these kind of questions, which was totally unexpected in FM. So it was a difficult paper. No, certainly, it was more difficult than previous 2 years in terms of difficulty level. And surely people will score less this year in FM. So first and foremost, a few observations with regard to this paper. I've already told you that it was very different and it was not the usual one which they've been asking in previous 2 years. What made it difficult was, I think, the changed nature of questions in management. So usually you have 50 marks of objective. So 25 around 25 is management and 25 is another 25 is finance. So 25 previous 2 years, I would say it was easy to score 25 out of 25 because it was management questions were more application based, directly related to the syllabus, pretty basic. So even if you have not read, or even if you have read the syllabus once, you would have been able to answer most of the questions. But this year it was totally different. And for a matter of fact, that someone who has not even read the management syllabus and has a general understanding of how things work, uh, he would not be at a great disadvantage compared to someone who has read the management syllabus and revised it thoroughly in objective section particularly. So yeah, so this is an overview of the management part, that it was very difficult and very different. And the kind of questions that they asked was pretty unique, and I don't think this kind of question they have asked ever before based on the previous year questions available so far. The second part is importance of reading paragraph. This point is important because in few of the questions, you would not believe that they had actually given answer in the paragraph itself. So usually, in the previous 2 years, so whenever they give paragraph, it is only to give an indication about some, let's say, scheme, and then question related to that scheme is asked. So basically, paragraph is useless beyond the point that you need to identify what scheme they're referring to or what report they're referring to. But this year, you had certain hints in the paragraph itself, and you could have got few answers which were mentioned in the paragraph. I can clearly say that there were 4 to 5 questions at least, which where the answer was mentioned in the paragraph itself. Had you been thorough and your critical reasoning skills are good and you know how to approach these kind of questions. If you were a GMAT aspirant, if you are CAT aspirant, then it would have been easy for you solving those kind of questions. But for normal aspirants, it was not easy, and rather it made the questions really difficult and kind of questions where it will seem that all the options are correct. So these kind of questions are very difficult to attempt unless you are thorough with those kind of questions through some other competitive examination. Thirdly, the paragraphs were time taking and lengthy. In the previous 2 examinations, what used to happen is that I used to complete the entire objective section. So you have 30 minutes for objective section, 30 questions. So earlier, it used to take hardly 15 minutes to solve these 30 questions. But this year, it took almost 26 to 27 minutes because you had to give an intensive reading of the paragraph to find the answers. And again, because you'd see that all the options are correct, so you have to be very thorough and pick up the keywords and deduce the best possible answer. So that is why it took a lot of time and it was time consuming this time. So this was another thing which had impacted the difficulty level of finance paper in objective part. Now coming to the list of questions that and all the questions that were asked in the objective section. So I have tried to recall and collect whatever questions I can, and still few questions are missing, but I'll give you an idea about what they were trying to ask. And I have seen some of the questions from different coaching institute, but they have not framed it properly. And some institute have given totally different question, which was not at all asked in the examination. So I'll give you whatever I can recall. I'll try to convey that to you through these questions. So the first question was a paragraph on management. It was that dreaded paragraph which everyone is talking about, which is an indication of how the nature of questions has changed in management part, especially. It required critical reasoning skills where so you had a paragraph given related to management, and from this paragraph you had to answer certain questions. So usually in management paragraph, like I said previously, these kind of paragraph they did not give you any answers. But this year you could find some of the answers, and paragraph was required to be read intensively to answer what was actually asked. So see, for example, the first question. So in the first question, I think in the first or second line, there was this phrase where there was a blank and practices was the next word, and they asked something that what would fill this blank. So the answer to this was management practices. So management was an option that you were required to select. Then second question was related to again why managers don't want to take up the training. Now this is one of those questions where you need to use your critical thinking and reasoning skills to understand why this particular thing is happening and what is the most appropriate answer to this question. So in these kind of questions, all the options seemed correct. But what will be the exact correct answer? Let's see. There were as for options, so options were like managers don't want to take training because they think their jobs will be replaced by AI, or they don't want to take training because they think more productivity will lead to more workload. These kind of options were there, and you had to take answer on the basis of the paragraph. Third question, this was actually fourth question, not third question. So this question was quite contrary, dash, and then you had 5 options here. So it was pretty obvious that it is this is a kind of negative statement. So you need to understand what was the essence of the statement. So in this statement, the actual answer was that quite contrary. It is easy to pull the leadership, something like that. And then the sentence continued. So so in the options, four options were making same sense, which was not going with this word contrary. Only one option was going with this contrary, which was Quite contrary, this is very easy to pull through leadership and management. Something like that was the statement. Exactly, I'm not able to recall, but that was the answer, which I'm particularly sure about this. Then, and there was another question in which there was a question on what will be filled in this blank, the answer to which was a theory by Sudan. So this theory was, his name was mentioned in the paragraph, in the second paragraph, and this blank was in somewhere in the first paragraph. So you need to basically infer these answers. So I'm not sure whether this answer is correct or not correct, but this is what I could recall regarding this first paragraph. Second question was a paragraph on SEBI circular. So this is pretty straightforward. I think circular of SEBI was detailed, and then you had to give answers on. Now this was a traditional paragraph where the paragraph would not help you a lot in answering these questions. If you have read this and you can recall, then you can answer. If you have not read it, it would have been difficult for you to answer. The first question was which organization has come up with this circular? Answer was SEBI. Second question was, from when is this circular effective? The answer was 1st November 2024. The third question was related to which platform will be used to block funds, something like that. UPI was the answer. And the fourth was the maximum limit of buying or investing, something like that was the question. So answer was 5 lakhs. So these are the four questions related to SEBI circular. Now, someone who has read this circular, it would be pretty easy and doable for that particular person. But if someone has not read, I think these two, or maybe this one, they can guess, but this would have been a difficult question to mark. Third question was the paragraph on Millennium Development Goals. Now, this is again one of those paragraphs where answer was mentioned in the paragraph itself for one of the questions, which was the first statement. This, so they asked what are they. So there was this blank, and then they asked what are they talking about. So this was the first paragraph. So there, let's say here was the blank, and here the sentence was mentioned. And in the second paragraph, it was mentioned that MDGs are this. So something, a reference to MDGs was there in the second paragraph. And MDGs were one of the options which would fill in this paragraph exactly. So MDGs were Millennium Development Goal was the answer. So someone who is not aware of these Millennium Development Goals, so he could have done this by reading the paragraph intensively. But I think most of the aspirants will be aware that these MDGs preceded Sustainable Development Goals. Second question was related to, again, so they asked that MDGs are related to some kind these kind of goals, and it covered uh, from dash to reducing HIV/AIDS, like something like this was the exact statement. And if you Google it, you'll find the exact statement that here actually it's halving extreme poverty is the phrase which will be put, which should fill here. So the halving extreme poverty is the answer for that question. Third was a question related to, I think, some the answer is plastic, but I'm not sure what was the exact statement. The fourth was what are the different organization or business organizations doing to implement this? Something like that they asked. There were five options: green economy, circular economy, action 2020 strategy. These kind of phrases were there, and one of them would be answer. I'm not sure what is the exact answer for that question. Then came a big relief. It was an easy paragraph on small finance bank. So the paragraph was like some kind of special banks were started in 2013, and then which mainly aim to give credit to MSMEs and small and medium farmers, small and marginal farmers. These kind of contents were there in the paragraph, and then asked what banks are being referred. So universal bank, small finance bank, payment bank, these kind of options were there. So it was easy to mark out that payment, small finance bank were the actual answer for that question. The second statement was that these banks were established with the aim to, and there was a blank. So financial inclusion is the correct for uh, that question. I think two more questions were there. I'm not very sure, but again, I'm not able to recall what other questions were there with respect to small finance bank. So these are the only two questions which I recall in this paragraph. And then came another surprise. So this was again a management paragraph where it was not at all related to anything which is there in the syllabus. They gave a theory or some culture or related theory was there, and it was again paragraph, three paragraphs. So one of the blanks in the paragraph, so it mentioned uh, that some events led to Dash's theory going beyond Russia and being read in US or on a global scale. Something like that was the sense of that line. And Vygotsky's name was mentioned in later part of the paragraph. So Vygotsky's theory was obviously being referred there. So this is something if you have read that passage twice, you could have inferred that Vygotsky was the answer. So this was one of the answers. Another question was related to which of the following is not a culture and not a factor affecting the culture, something on that line. So answer was biological factor is not only one of the factors, something like that was the statement. So this was another answer. And third was that the company had made some online survey. Like there is a company who had made some online survey data bank for different organizations, and they are offering that to they're offering their services through of conducting that survey to different organizations, and along with that they are also offering dash something of that sort, and the answer which was coming was a survey tool. So this was the actual answer for that question. So these three questions, and again, totally based on the paragraph, there is no prerequisite knowledge that you are required that was required to solve this question. But if you are good at reading, good at comprehensions, you get the idea, and you can input the ideas, you could have solved these three questions. One more question was there. Now I'm not sure. I'm only listing 17 questions here, so three questions I'm missing. Now I'm not sure whether one more question was here and two more questions were in this paragraph. So that makes 17 plus 3 20, or there might be one more paragraph. So exactly, I'm not able to recall because there is so much of mix-up happening between ESI and uh, finance paragraph. It has become a really difficult for me to recall the exact questions. But these are the broad questions. So these are the 17 questions which were there in the two markers. Coming to the one markers. So these are all the 10 questions. So these are the exact questions which were there. So first question was related to UPI circle, where they asked how many secondary users can be there in UPI circle. Answer was 5. Second question was on Johari window, where they asked in the Johari window model, what uh, what do you call that quadrant where the person knows himself but the others don't know him? So the answer was hidden. Third was about a managerial grid. So they basically asked who gave a managerial grid uh, regarding managers. This was the question, and Blake and Morton's managerial grid was the answer. Then they asked what is the type of communication in which every person only communicates to the person adjacent to him. So this was the circle communication, which was the answer. Then they asked which of the following. Then there was a statement. So they said, I think they said banks undergo credit market and operational risks. Which of the risks is related to NBFCs? So this was the question, and the options were only credit risk, credit market risk, credit market and operational risk. So these kind of combinations were there. So the answer is all. All three were the risks related to NBFC. Next question was what was the ways and means advances limit for central government in the second half of the year? So the answer was 50,000 crores. Next question was related to the definition of expectancy theory. So it was basically it defined the exact theory that uh, someone who is putting an effort and is expecting a reward. uh, expecting a performance which will give him the reward, desired reward. So, which of the theory is related to this? Like, this was the question. So, there were five theories. Expectancy theory was the answer. Then another question was one of the SEBI circulars where they said, I have not read this circular, that is why I'm not able to recall the exact wording, but it was like something had T plus 6 settlement cycle and it has reduced to what period? So answer was T plus 3. Then they answered, then they questioned also on REIT, where they said the requirement of asset size has reduced to what? 50 crores for the answer. And then there was this last question. So this question was again an application-based question related to management. So they said DAS management or leadership. One of these two terms was there, I'm not sure. So there was a blank here, and they said this is related to planning, implementing, and executing a change in an organization. And the transitional management through wordplay, I could infer that transitional management was the only appropriate answer. So I think transitional management is the answer to that question. So these are all the 10 markers, all the 10 questions which were one markers in the finance and management paper this year. So if you ask me what was my overall feedback of the objective section, so I've repeated multiple times that it was no doubt tough. It was very tough compared to what it used to be in the previous years. So in 2022, I think there were a lot of people who scored more than 35 marks. In 2023, there were more people who scored more than 40 marks. But this year, I think if you ask me what would be a good attempt or good score, and I'll tell you if you're getting 25 or above, then it's a very, very good score in management and finance objective this year. So this is my understanding of the objective section. Now I'll move to the descriptive section. So in the 15 markers, three questions were there. You have to answer any two of them. First question was on derivatives. The question was regarding derivatives. What are the different types of derivatives? What are the different market participants in derivatives? What are the different types of market of derivatives? What is the significance of derivatives and what is the risk associated with derivatives? So you have to elaborate on these aspects, and these were explicitly mentioned in the question. Second question was factors that impact business ethics, quite generic question. And if you have a little bit of further points, you can definitely write this question. Third was trait versus behavioral theories of leadership, which is also fairly direct from syllabus. And if you have read management well, you can have attempted this question. Personally, if you ask me, I attempted this question. Why? Because I think I had clear key terms related to these three parts of the question, and I have also written these parts well because I had read derivatives previously, and some things are there which are very fundamental and they stay in your mind. So derivative is one of those sections. So that is why I attempted this question. This was to be answered in 620 words. All the 15 markers, in fact, had to be answered in 620 words. So in this question, if you see the interface of the examination, here is the box where you have to type. Here is the question, and here you will see that word count is there. So last year also and this year as well. So they actually gave the upper limit here, and once you started typing, the word count would reduce in reverse. So it was slightly difficult to manage. Like, so when you are usually typing, if the counting is from 1, 2, 3, 4, so you have that understanding, okay, 100 words are done. So I need to plan my answer in such a way that I have to write another 400 or 450 words. But in the reverse counting, you need to do a little bit of math as well, that how much word is left, and then you have to plan the answer. So that is slightly challenging. So in this question, I think around 80 words were left. So I attempted around 540 words in this question. And in the second question, which I attempted was factors impacting business ethics. In this question, I also attempted in around 580 words. I had good examples and many points related to this business ethics questions and how it is impacted by different factors. So I elaborated on that. And I don't think there is a standard correct answer for these kind of questions. There are a lot of factors, and you just need to keep your structure well, do whatever best you can, and avoid grammatical mistakes, keep the fluency good, and cover it through the generic understanding that you have. And you'll get a good, very good marks in these kind of questions. Third question was trait versus behavioral theories. Although I have read these theories, but I was not able to recall all the theories. So I thought I might find it difficult to write in 600 words, or for that matter, 550 words as well. That is why I chose to skip this question. Coming to 10 markers, a question was on 81 bonds. I think very few, rare few would have attempted these questions. And I think those who would have attempted this, even they have written less standard answer, I think they'll get relatively good marks and liberal marks. Because it is pretty obvious that if someone is attempting those questions which the masses are skipping, so he or she is already in a little bit of advantage. It's a psychological thing. And if someone who has attempted this question, he can be sure of getting good marks, little bit, better marks than those who have attempted other questions with same quality of answers. So this is the thing with regard to AG1 bonds. But I don't think many would have attempted this. Hardly, I think 900 people are writing this exam. So maybe 20, 25 would have attempted this. Based on general understanding that I have, there can definitely be more. Second question was growth versus value investing. Again, this is something which I have never read, but a little bit of idea I had. I just remembered one line related to growth and one line related to value, and I elaborated basically literally everything, connected points, and then I elaborated on that. But I don't know. I don't think I've written a very good answer. So let's see how that goes and how is it evaluated. Third is different channel of communications in an organization, fairly direct questions and quite easy to attempt. So 10 markers questions were required to be answered in 400 words. Again, same thing, same interface. Here 420 was mentioned, the counting was in reverse as you kept on writing. So the word limit would go on decreasing. So in this question, growth versus value, I think my 30 words were left, and in different channel of communication in organization, another 50 words were left. So more or less, I have attempted around 75 to 80% of the word limit, and I've tried to keep the basic structure, keep the fluency and grammar correct. Content, of course, is the most important thing in finance descriptive. So the content is something which will be evaluated uh, with first priority, of course. But let's see how that goes. Other parts I've done decent in on other parameters, but content is really open, and how they evaluate it, what they're expecting in the answers. That is something which only marks can tell. So I think if you have attempted all four questions and with decent word limit and proofread your answers, kept fluency. The structure is basic IBC structure you're following, introduction, body, conclusion. So I think there would not be much variation in the marking for a descriptive question. That is for sure. So what would be a good score in this year's FM paper? Before coming to a good score, I was analyzing the data of FM of past 2 years, 2022 and 2023. I was particularly interested in these 2 years because I also appeared in these 2 years and I have my scores as well. So I just wanted to understand how things are working for the top 75 people in previous 2 years. So first I'll tell you this data is only of top 75 ranks in the final list every year, so you can get their marks. Now, it is pretty obvious that there would have been many people who would have been in top 75 if we consider only mains score, but could not make it to the finalists because of the interview. So that is one factor that you need to keep in mind while seeing and understanding this data. So if you see in 2022, the objective part of FM, the mean was 39.9 marks for top 75 rankers. Okay. In the descriptive, however, you see the mean is 34,409. So it's pretty standard that the marks in descriptive are usually less compared to objective for the top 75 rankers. And it is something which you will see generally as well for all of them, or all of those who have appeared, that usually they tend to score higher in the objective and then lower in the descriptive. Another thing is the range here. You see range and standard deviation. So standard deviation gives you an idea of what is the spread of the or variance in marks between these 75 rankers, top 75 rankers. So you can see that standard deviation in objective is high and in descriptive it is less. So this data implies that there is more variation in marking in objective. That means people have scored, the range is high and few people have scored very really less, few people have scored really high. So this kind of variation is there in objective. Compared to objective, this variation is less in descriptive. So that means that it is in the top 75. Objective is really a good point to take advantage because their variation is high. So if you're doing well in objective part, so you have higher chances of, so you're in the safer zone. I'm only talking about finance, not the overall phase two for now. And one more factor is there. So this R square factor, this R square is one of the parameters in statistics which just give you indication of correlation between two data sets. So what is that? I'll quickly explain you. So you have objective marks of all the candidates, and then you have the total marks of all the candidates in finance. So let's say if someone has scored 45 in objective and someone has scored 30 in descriptive, so total would be 75. So like this, you have 5 data sets here. So this is sorted. So this will be, let's say, 42, this will be 40, this will be 38. So data is sorted this way or ranked this way. Ranked, the objective column is ranked. And accordingly, the total column would also change because uh, total is objective plus descriptive. So here it is 30, it's 75. So let's say here it is 35, so it's 77. So I have sorted the column of the objective, and then if you correlate that the rank of this column, if you correlate the rank and the rank of this column, so the factor that you are getting is 0.63. Now, ideally, if the factor is 1, so this would imply that the rank of objective column would be exactly same in the rank of total column, which means that this candidate will score higher than this will score higher than third, this will score higher than fourth, and so on. So if this value is 1, but this value is 0.63, it is usually not 1. It cannot be 1. So it clearly implies that, of course, they are positively correlated, which means that if you're scoring high in objective, you will score high in total, which is quite obvious. Similar thing is here, it is positive. If you're high, if you score high in descriptive, you'll score high in overall. So it is pretty obvious thing. But what I was trying to find is that how much is the total mark correlated to the only objective section and how much it is correlated to the descriptive section. So it is pretty obvious that R square for descriptive is really high, objective is really high, pretty high compared to the descriptive. Now, this data gives you an impression that the total marks of finance is driven by objective section primarily and not the descriptive section for these top 75 rankers. So this is one point which I'm making here, that in 2022 the marks in FM were driven by objective. So let's see what happened in 2023. Same thing you will see in 2023 as well, but there is slight increase in descriptive, although it's not huge, it's minimal. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to ideally there should be a balance between objective and descriptive. There is still a huge gap. That means people are scoring high on objective, and on the basis of that, they're scoring high in overall paper. So ideally, Ideally, in ideal world, it should be like 50-50 kind of thing, that objective and descriptive both are equally important because the weightage is same. But maybe because of the marking difficulty level of the questions, a lot of factors are there. So this is just a general observation which I thought I'll share with you. And so compare this 2023 descriptive stats for this top 25 rankers compared to 2022. You see that the mean has gone up, the deviation has gone down. In the descriptive, the mean has gone down, the deviation has gone up. In the overall, mean has gone up and the deviation has gone down. So in 2023, what has happened? The objective was easy, and that is why you see there is up in the mean of the top 75. The deviation has gone down, which means the competition was tough compared to 2023. The variation was relatively less. In the descriptive part, which was again tough last year because of that Henry Fayol question, maybe they asked very specifically those 14 principles. So it has gone, the average has gone down, and the deviation has also gone. However, the standard deviation has gone up in 2023 in descriptive, which means there is, compared to 2022, there is more scope of taking advantage in descriptive than what would have been in 2022. So this is the general interpretation of this data. So this year, I think again, what they will be trying to do is they're trying to make it more descriptive driven compared to objective driven. And probably we will see less variation or less standard deviation in the objective part this year because of the uncertain nature of the questions. Many will be in the similar range. They'll be close, and there will be some exceptionals and outliers can always be there, but most of the people will be close in objective. So descriptive will come into picture this year. So if you have done good in descriptive, I think you have a good chance, and barring you have made any fundamental mistakes. So this is one thing which you need to keep in mind when you are evaluating your attempt this year.
So what would be a good score this year for FM paper? So based on the understanding that I have made and after going through the data sets of previous 2 years and the level of questions this year and kind of feedback what I'm seeing through different channels, I would say a good score this year would be 20 to 25 in objective. In descriptive, it will be 32. Now, again, in objective, it has gone severely down compared to what it was in 2022. So it is approximately so the average will probably go down by 18 marks. In descriptive as well, it will go slightly less because number one, it has that psychological impact of what a person has done in the objective paper. And when you go with most of us, we go with preconceived notion that I have to score certain marks in the objective of FM paper. And once you're not able to get that in the examination, it does impact you. Plus, the kind of questions that were there in the 10 markers, like 81 bonds. So if you're not very familiar with any of the other two questions, it will impact your overall marks in this paper. Considering these factors, I think descriptive 32 would be average score for top 75 this year. I've taken only 75 candidates in the data set because only 75 would go through unreserved category. So this all analysis is mainly related to unreserved category. Other categories can accordingly adjust their marks. But for unreserved category, I think 52 to 57 is an ideal range. What I mean by ideal range is that if you're getting something in this range in FM, so you are on a track to clear phase 2, subject to your performance in other sections, of course. But if you consider only FM, 52 to 57 is a good score. If you're going beyond that, you are on advantage. You're closer to clearing. So this is an overall interpretation of this year's phase 2 FM paper. In the next video, I'll bring ESI and English as well, and that will be the second part of the video. Thank you. You can connect with me on my Telegram group here if you have any queries or if you want to give your feedback. You can also email me here if you have some, you want some personal guidance or if you have some issues, if you want to get it addressed, you can mail me over here. I respond.